Martin Luther King Jr. famously had this quote about the content of a person's character. I won't read the whole thing, but I'll put it up on screen so you can pause the video if for some reason you flunked out of the 4th grade and no longer remember it. Notably absent from that quote is him hoping that one day an unhinged white woman will be able to call a child the N-word and then make hundreds of thousands of dollars from racist internet trolls giving her money. Sadly, I feel like that secondary vision is a lot closer to coming into fruition, given it is literally happening right now. When I heard about the story of Shiloh Hendrix, the aforementioned unhinged white woman hurling racial epithets at a child, of course I was taken aback. Not just because of the shocking nature of the story, that much is obvious, but I have a larger, harder to answer question. How the fuck did we get here? Genuinely. Sure, you could argue America's never been a particular bright spot for social equality. We went from chattel slavery to Jim Crow to systemic racism like we were speedrunning a video game. That game would be entitled How to Go Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire into Another Fire. Sure, you're making some gradual progress, but at the end of the day, you're still getting burnt to a crisp. So that's one theory, but I think it's insufficient to answer what brings us to Shiloh Hendrix specifically. Because it used to be that people felt some manner of contrition or shame for viciously bullying children. Unless, of course, they have bad vibes or are overall unpleasant to deal with. I'm thinking about one of my cousins in particular. I don't know, man, just every Thanksgiving they kind of rub people the wrong way, so then I have to start gossip about how they're not really trying that hard in school. I think Tommy's grades in shapes and colors class is really slipping. And did you see him at the recital the other week? Totally checked out. I mean, he'll be lucky to even get 3rd violin at this point. Joking aside, but very much included in this topic because I have to make some jokes or I will start crying, I think it comes down to a couple things. Cruelty, shamelessness, and frankly, a greater social acceptance of bigotry. So in today's video, I want to talk about the Shiloh Hendrix incident. I want to talk about some of the greater context that perhaps informs us of this current moment. And I want to answer just how the hell we've gotten to a point where a woman can become a millionaire on the backs of behavior that should not be tolerated in a healthy society. My name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat. If you enjoy my videos and my content, please like, comment, interact with this video. More interactions gets it out to more people, and I super duper appreciate it. I am also on social media. Why am I so unsure about that? Follow me if you want. Heart, back by popular demand. So just on a general level, how are we feeling, America? Can I get a vibe check? You failed! Yeah, it's bad, right? Yeah, I kind of agree. And if you're watching from another country, you can have a laugh at our expense, but don't you be laughing too much, because I have seen a lot of different flags on the comments of that racist woman's GoFundMe, but we'll get there in a second. A good resource for backing up our inherent feeling that everything is going to shit is to look at the regularly conducted Gallup poll, which polls Americans on their specific views of how do you think race relations are going in this country? They're going down. I'm yelling timber. That is not great. Ideally, they would be going in the other direction. But what I find remarkable is that it's actually consistently okay in the early 2000s. I think I'm technically supposed to use the term the aughts to describe the years of 2000 to 2009, but frankly, I feel like a fucking moron when I have to use that term. It reminds me of what old people say when pesky kids frolic across their lawn. Why I oughta, back in my day, if you'd be this disobedient, we would have taken away your Bakugans and your Digimans and your Poggers. We've combined a lot of youth references in there for all segments of my audience. I'm kidding, of course, because in 50 years, kids will not be playing outside. Hell, they barely play outside now. By 2075, it's gonna literally just be the world from WALL-E. But let's briefly revisit the halcyon days of the early 2000s, when yes, we were fully invading Iraq and Afghanistan, and our civil liberties were slowly being curtailed, but weirdly, things were better, race relations-wise. And I should mention that while we're focusing today's video on a discussion of the African-American experience in the aftermath of 9/11, tons of discrimination if you were Muslim in America. It's regrettable. History.com, of all places, doesn't really offer any further clarity. Their article entitled "The Black History Timeline" only has 2 events listed from 2000 to 2008, and they are the appointments of Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell into the Bush administration. And I guess that is valuable history because they prove that any American of any race can do atrocious war crimes. Thanks, Condoleezza. Thanks, Colin. But that brings us to Barack Obama, who is a broadly well-known public figure by about 2007, 3 years after entering national prominence following a DNC speech in 2004. Obama has gotten a lot of criticism over the years, but really, the only thing he did wrong, he wore that dang tan suit. I'm just kidding, of course. Obama is the single most disappointing president in modern US political history, and it's for reasons far beyond his, admittedly, very dapper suit. I think it's egregious that he did all those drone strikes, and frankly, we don't talk about it enough, but you have to admit, the man had style. His election as the first ever black president was meant to be this historical turning point, and this turning point in race relations as well. And in retrospect, it's fairly naive that people believe this, the assumption that one election could undo hundreds of years of ingrained racism. And when it didn't, people got angry. Between mid-2013 and 2015, when this graph experienced its largest dip, there were several high-profile instances of police officers murdering black people and facing little, if any, punishment. To name just a few, Eric Garner in New York, Michael Brown in Missouri, and Tamir Rice in Ohio. All of these high-profile cases brought something to the surface that had been simmering but unacknowledged. Racism is a big problem. It's never stopped being a problem, actually. And yes, there's a focus on policing, but it extends all throughout society. And when tasked to fix this, Obama offered empathy, but without full control of Congress, he could offer very little, if anything, in the way of policy, which is a good way to piss off both the people who agree with you and the people who disagree with you. It's a little bit like telling everybody you're bringing pizza to the party, except you don't have any money to buy the pizza, so you just arrive empty-handed. Except instead of pizza, it's absolutely essential legislation to fix racial justice issues. One final thing to discuss before we hop to the present. Remember how I mentioned Obama's election was largely viewed as a sign of progress? Well, it was, but it wasn't for everybody. His ascension to the Oval Office literally caused a political realignment, largely on the backs of old Democrats who were white and racist and insecure about it, saying, "Hey, wait, I don't actually like this at all." And then things got even worse as we get to COVID and George Floyd's murder, when Americans for a brief fleeting moment realized that there was systemic racism, but given this was all during the Trump administration, basically nothing was done about it. And that's the state of race relations as we come to today. Shiloh Hendrix, the mother of 2 beautiful children and a virulent racist. And I realize with how that sentence is phrased, it might sound like she has 3 children, 2 of them are good, but one of them is a really, awful person. No, she is the racist. Her 2 kids, to my knowledge, they're good, but they are facing a steep uphill climb to stay that way. She went viral to the tune of tens of millions of views, which is great if you're trying to jumpstart a music career, less great if they've caught you on camera saying a bunch of offensive racial slurs. She even caught me on camera. Although admittedly, some people like Morgan Wallen, or Waylon, I don't care, seem to have managed to do both. Frankly, given he makes country music, it's possible that him saying the N-word actually made him more popular. If anything, when he apologized for it, they were like, hey, take it back. The video in question of the Hendrix incident is, not great. It is not a fun watch. But this calls to mind an important point I'd like to make about both our past and our present. We are on social media way more than we used to be. In this era of declining or bad race relations, the average person is spending roughly 50% more time per day on social media than they did compared to 2012 and 2013. And something tells me all this extra time isn't just being used to look at cute videos of dogs playing beer pong. And yes, that absolutely exists, and we are absolutely going to be playing a clip of it right now. If this was the only type of content on social media, there would be no war, there would be no violence, and we would all party a lot more.
Imagine there's no heaven.
Okay, bit about dogs playing beer pong over, time to get back to racial injustice. Is it possible that this enhanced awareness of America's fundamental and innate problems with racism, is it possible that all of this is coming about simply because we're being exposed to a lot more information than we used to be? When footage of Rodney King being beaten by the LAPD came to the surface in 1992, it was both uncommon and shocking. It even resulted in widespread unrest after the officers responsible were acquitted. But in the present day with social media, we're seeing so much more of it, so many more examples of police brutality and just regular racism. Case in point, this exact video that we're discussing. So are things actually worse, or have they always been like this? And not to be the friend who's too woke, but I'm gonna have to go with the latter. Many Americans have always been this racist. It's always been this bad. Maybe not quite to the same level as Shiloh Hendrix bad, but very bad. When living in an ecosystem with really not that much media, it's easy to gloss over issues that you may have because you're not getting exposed to them regularly, if at all. It's why the citizens of North Korea will never know how many times the Buffalo Bills have disappointed me. In today's news, the Buffalo Bills have won their 59th consecutive Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes has been confined in this weird, creepy, supervillain-esque tower. Seriously, what is that building? I wasn't aware that Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated had relocated to Pyongyang. I do think it's fairly inarguable that the internet has brought about a greater awareness of these types of issues to the general public, which is great. Hiding these issues does us no good. Just because you're not aware of an issue doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like, for instance, I wasn't aware that my boyfriend never really loved me. Probably. Yes, if you're wondering, it did become an issue. But while the internet has allowed us to become aware of these issues, it doesn't actually mean that we've come any closer to solving them. In fact, in some ways, the internet is probably making things worse. For instance, anyone can launch a fundraising page where you can use your hard-earned money to donate to a variety of causes, ranging from paying someone's cancer bills, which is uplifting, but it's really depressing that we need to do that, to, on the extreme end, paying Shiloh Hendrix for whatever the fuck this is.
Okay, why don't you have the balls to say it right now again?
You, Nick.
Okay.
Nick.
Alright, that's what you say.
That's the N-word a grand total of 4 times, just in that very short snippet of the overall thing. Which, not that I'm counting, but I actually am. That works out to be roughly 180 grand per slur. Being a right-wing racist, not a bad job if you can get it. Completely unrelated question, do we think there's any more room for twinks in the Republican Party? I'd love to start a donation page to chip away at some of my student debt that I got attending my communist university, which gave me the woke mind virus. Prayers up in the chat for a cure. Something tells me they're not gonna buy it. In the now viral video, we really only see a brief clip of the confrontation. In all likelihood, the cameraman probably realized that as soon as she was, hurling out racial epithets like hotcakes, he might as well try to get at least some of the confrontation documented on film.
You know, that's a hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
Hendrix claims that the child in the video, who is 5, was looking around in her son's diaper bag. Which, okay, let's assume that to be true. In what world does it make sense to hurl offensive racial epithets at a child for doing that? In what world? And you know what? I'm actually not gonna assume that to be true, because that means I'd be taking the word of a racist at face value, and I really try never to do that. Unless, of course, I'm talking to one of my relatives from the country and they recommend me a diner. That's advice you can generally take, even if they have questionable views on race.
Growing up in the 90s, I never thought much about race. Sure, you noticed, but never really seemed to matter that much.
Okay, I may have to take that one back. Throwback to that video got so many hate comments. I actually still do get an occasional hate comment on that video, which almost warms my heart. I was gonna say chest. I don't have heartburn. Well, now I do, I guess. Yeah, we're leaving all that in, I guess. But I also just want to say, like, this child could have easily mistaken your bag for somebody else's, right? Like, I'm assuming his parents probably had a bag. Maybe he wanted, like, a snack. He could have just wanted a snack, and you're calling this child the N-word. Like, oh my god. Hendrix has her defenders, obviously, and some amongst them even claim that there's no direct proof that she called this 5-year-old the N-word. And if you find yourself seriously, unironically using that line of argument, drop your phone, throw it in the toilet, and get your ass to a church. And I'm not even religious, but I'm being serious. If you're, actually, we didn't see direct footage of her calling the child the slur, which I don't even really think that the slur is that bad. Unironically, get off your phone, Kobe your phone into the shitter, and go to your nearest church. But pick one with a rainbow flag in the window prominently displayed, because then you know they have some form of conscience and can help you on your journey to slowly become less of a terrible human being. Please do that for me, okay? This is also directly contradicted by the video that we saw.
That little kid, you call him a nigga?
Yeah.
The little child?
What if he acts like one? He's gonna.
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child 5-year-old and the N-word.
If that's what he's gonna act.
That's what you're gonna.
I think the whole absurdity of this situation is really brought to bear when she is saying all of these hurtful, obscene things, and then the camera just pans to the most innocent-looking child hanging out on the playground. And fun fact, there are also thousands of people who don't think that this child is 5. He may even be 10, which, in that case, oh my god, he's 10 years old? All of her actions are completely and totally justified. Do you morons hear yourselves? I imagine since your thick, racist skull is so hollow, that might make it a little easier. All of your dumbass thoughts intensified with a cavernous echo. Cancel culture is canceled. Go woke, go broke. My wife won't let me see the kids anymore. But yes, Shiloh Hendrix more or less confirms the allegations of the cameraman that she did in fact call this 5-year-old the N-word, and then she hurls around a bunch of other insults and racial slurs throughout the rest of the video for good measure.
Did you call the child the N-word?
None of your fucking business.
It is my own business. You call him a nigga?
To paraphrase from America's Commander-in-Chief, she seems like a real nasty woman. That's also just a comical thing to do when you're losing an argument. Like, you have less emotional maturity than the child that you are literally carrying in your arms. As the caption of the video here suggests, the person posting it did in fact want it to go viral.
So spread this video to all your friends, because it's a computer virus.
That's one of the directly stated goals of filming any sort of antisocial behavior. It's to get it circulated widely so that the person doing the antisocial behavior will be punished by society in some way. The biggest example here pertains to employment. If you guys remember the video I did on Lily Gaddis last year, after she filmed TikToks of herself saying the N-word, she lost her job. Editing Pat here, real quick. It's so funny I brought this up because I filmed this and then the next day, Lily Gaddis made another appearance on the Piers Morgan show. I don't even know if I can write a joke about it. Take a look at this clip.
I mean, would you use the N-word out of interest?
Yes.
You would?
I do, quite frequently.
You use the N-word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge myself not to make a political joke. She looks like she could be one of the villains from the first Purge movie. Ah, crap, that's a pop culture reference. Well, this is an impromptu segment. I don't know what more you want from me. And now that I think about it, it's kind of weird that this is my second year in a row covering a woman who has to make a hard right pivot after being caught on camera saying offensive racial epithets. Comment down below if you think the trend is going to continue in 2026. But to my knowledge, Hendrix hasn't really suffered any consequences in response to her abhorrent behavior. Quite the contrary, in fact. She's launched a fundraiser that, at the time of filming, has raised $720,000. Sadly, I do think she's going to eventually reach her stated goal of $1 million because essentially her fundraiser is just a button you can push. It costs $10 and it'll broadcast to the world that you're a racist. And racists, you know, they're into that kind of thing. Or you can donate $1,488 like Average White Man did. For those of you who are unaware, that is a number that means things to people who are white supremacists. 14 refers to a sentence that is very racist and is 14 words long, and 88 refers to HH. H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, and it stands to praise a certain German leader from World War II. Again, I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about. They're hailing him. Someone in the comments said I can say his name in a video, and frankly, I don't believe you. The YouTube algorithm views him like Voldemort. Oh, excuse me. He who must not be named, lest DraftKings stop advertising with us. It's this financial windfall that's caused people like Matt Walsh to loudly proclaim that cancel culture is over, and people using less of a dog whistle to largely claim that white people were tired of being afraid. Okay. And to their point, how else should we interpret this? This woman loudly and proudly called a small child and a random person of color the most offensive word you can use in America multiple times. And yet, she has millions of supporters and has raised so much money that she can take all of it and go buy a house in an affluent and bigoted Connecticut suburb where she belongs. I'd say she could go right to the Old South, but she has so many tattoos, I do not think she would cut it there, despite all of the fawning AI images that have been generated of her by various right-wingers on Twitter. Fuck generative AI, and fuck you. Oh. I just realized I said fuck twice, but she is only flipping one bird. It's okay though, because someone in the comments of that original tweet asked an AI to give her clown makeup, and for some reason, the AI gave her an entire additional hand. Why? I don't know. But even the AI representation of the 5-year-old is a little bit scared by what has just happened in the second iteration of this image. Well, look. I mean, obviously this isn't okay, but I do want to try to explain it through a couple different lenses. Our current moment has a lot of cruelty, politically, economically, socially. By that same token, if the world sucks, why not call this child who supposedly annoyed you a racial slur? Because you don't care. Empathy is a seemingly dying virtue, or at least one that's in short supply. Hell, even decency. It's hard to find now. And this can be well documented in the thousands of replies on Twitter pertaining to this topic. There is virulent racism, and it is everywhere. Sure, Twitter isn't real life, but at a certain point you have to accept that Twitter helped this dogshit human being raise $750,000. I'm making it higher because it probably will be higher by now. It's probably higher as I'm editing this video. At a certain point, you can't dismiss online sentiment as being strictly unrepresentative of reality. I do also think it's possible that racial relations genuinely have declined over the past 2 decades. Multiple high-profile murderers getting acquitted, no real action taken to fix underlying issues of police brutality and systemic racism, and both of Trump's ascensions to the White House, each time associated with a cadre of sniveling, groveling racists. Frankly, it doesn't surprise me that in this world, people like Shiloh Hendrix are unafraid to call people the N-word. Camera be damned. A lot has been said to compare this case with one of Carmelo Anthony, a 17-year-old Texan who has been arrested after stabbing another student in what he claims was self-defense. In his fundraiser, his family raised about $520,000 as of the time I'm recording this video. Oddly enough, though, both of these fundraisers were hosted on the Costco version of GoFundMe, the Christian Give, Send, Go, which claims to both be pro-Jesus and pro-hosting fundraisers for even the most controversial of causes. And if you don't feel like donating to either of them, that's fine. You can just hit the pray button, which is proudly displayed on both of their pages. I wish we would do this with, like, other issues. Like, the World Wildlife Federation should have a pray button. No, you silly homophone goose. Not a pray button, a pray button. There we go, that's the right type of praying. You can't save the white rhino, but you can certainly pray for it. I can give you some rationale about how the Anthony Fund is likely to be used for defense funds to pay lawyers, which is something you absolutely need if you're in a self-defense case, rather than in a playground altercation, which makes his fundraiser a lot more justifiable. But I'd be wasting my breath at that point, even though I guess I've kind of already made that point. Oops. I don't think it's a positive development where we seemingly have 2 fundraisers meant to represent right and wrong, which is which depends on who you ask, good and evil. I don't think it's that cut and dry. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to both sides this issue because one of them clearly needs the money. Hint, it's not Shiloh. But it's upsetting that this is where we're at. Acts of racism are no longer things that cause people to apologize, do introspection, and try to become a better person. Instead, they simply, hand out an empty hat. I knew I had a hat in this room. And, well, it wouldn't be a Dodgers hat. It would be a Texas Rangers hat. And they hold out an empty hat and say, here, fill it up. And tons of racists all across the internet gladly pour in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mine is empty, so... One of the things I've seen a lot in response to this is the notion that white guilt is over. And you know what? You morons should feel guilty. I'm not even talking about how white people generations ago set up entire sections of society to benefit themselves and consequently you, and consequently me. No, I'm talking about how you are deliberately giving money to a terrible person. You've taken your hard-earned money and given it to someone who starts fights in public with 5-year-olds. That should embarrass you. When my mom argues with Macy's employees to get an additional 15% off, I feel mortified, let alone this. If a 5-year-old is going through your bag, your first instinct should not be to call him a racial slur.
Give it back now. Noah! Larry, what the hell are you doing? Larry! Larry, you can't just...
You can do that. You can try to give a stern parenting lesson, or you can figure out that there might be some kind of misunderstanding here. Jesus Christ. And frankly, it's possible that this whole thing was fabricated and fabricated to her benefit. And if that's the case, well... my God, she certainly has benefited, hasn't she? I'm just gonna be hitting the pray button that the child at the center of all this controversy won't remember a lick of it when he gets older. Otherwise, in, I don't know, like 12, 13, 14 years, we're gonna be seeing another give, send, go to cover this kid's therapy bills. 'Cause they're gonna be high. We'll end as we began, with a quote, "It takes a village to raise a child." Unfortunately, this phrase fails to consider what happens if the village doesn't want to raise the child, and instead wants to call them the N-word. Then the other racist villagers give that villager $1 million for being so brave. I'll reiterate, this behavior is simply unacceptable in a polite society, regardless of the fact that we can find a reason as to why it exists now. Fundamentally, it should not be respected. It should not be tolerated. It should not be rewarded. Certainly not with $720,000. Jesus Christ. In my view, the first step into fixing all of the issues that have led to Shiloh Hendrix is to loudly and proudly and without wavering say, "Fuck you, Shiloh Hendrix." That's rather rude and direct, so I imagine you won't be using your newfound racist largesse to be subscribing to my Patreon if I make one of those. E-begging. Not just in times of tragedy. But that's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe. All that fun stuff. Interacting with the video gets it out to more people, and I super duper appreciate it. I know this was a heavier topic, but comment down below what you think. Did my jokes make up for it a little bit? Did we learn something and laugh a little bit? Because that's always the goal here. My name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat, and I'll see you for the next one.